Keir Starmer.
Mr. Speaker, we've got a billionaire Prime Minister and a billionaire Prime Minister, both of whose families have used schemes to avoid millions of pounds of tax, smearing a working-class woman.
1 minute ago, British politics was shaken to its core. In a stunning act of defiance, 43 Labour MPs have walked out at once, leaving Keir Starmer's leadership in ruins. The nation is stunned, Westminster is in chaos, and the truth is exploding into the open. At the centre of this firestorm is a scandal so vast, so unthinkable, that it has torn Labour apart from the inside. £22 billion. Gone, vanished into secret deals, shadowy firms, and contracts that now threaten to bury the entire party. This is not politics as usual. This is collapse, live and in real time. And the story is only just beginning. The cracks inside Labour have now split wide open, and the collapse has turned into a political earthquake. 43 resignations, not over months, not over weeks, but within a single shocking day. It began with whispers in Westminster's corridors, murmurs of discontent, quiet warnings from those who had seen the documents. For days, rumours spread of billions unaccounted for, of hidden contracts signed in secrecy, of firms linked to advisors and donors, pocketing unimaginable sums of public money. Many dismissed it as gossip, as the usual noise of politics. But when the first resignation landed, everything changed. It was not a backbencher seeking attention. It was a senior frontbench figure, an MP close to Starmer himself, holding up proof, documents and memos that pointed to a betrayal at the highest levels. The dominoes fell quickly after that. Within hours, social media feeds turned into a wildfire of outrage. Screens lit up with breaking headlines. Shadow Home Secretary resigns. Shadow Chancellor follows. Labour front bench collapsing. Each new update struck like a hammer blow, and by noon the total reached 43. That number carried weight. Not just rebels on the margins, but senior ministers, strategists and loyal allies who had defended Starmer for years, now walking away in disgust. And they did not leave quietly. Each resignation was accompanied by evidence, emails, contracts, leaked documents showing how £22 billion of taxpayer money was funneled into firms that produced nothing but excuses. A consultancy allegedly paid billions, yet with no reports to show. Another firm supposedly handling public outreach pocketed money but left no trace of any work done. Each letter painted the same damning picture: deception, corruption, betrayal. By early afternoon, the anger had spilled out of Parliament and into the streets. Protesters gathered outside Westminster, their voices shaking with fury. Signs demanded answers. Where's the 22 billion though, and not in our name? For many, this was not just about politics. This was about trust, broken in the most unforgivable way. Families struggling with rising costs of living now faced the reality that billions had been lost in shadows while they scraped to survive. The betrayal cut deep and the outrage spread faster than Starmer's team could respond. Inside Labour headquarters, the scramble was desperate. Statements were rushed out, insisting the documents were taken out of context, that the contracts were legal and routine. But the explanations only fanned the flames. The evidence was too heavy, the resignations too powerful, the anger too raw. For every denial Starmer's team pushed, another MP stepped forward with fresh proof. It became impossible to spin, impossible to contain. What Westminster thought was a crisis of leadership was quickly revealed to be something much darker, a full-scale rebellion against a leader accused of protecting insiders while betraying the nation. And then came the letter. A single document signed by all 43 MPs delivered straight to the chief whip. Its words were cold and final. Keir Starmer no longer commands the moral or political authority to lead the Labour Party. It was not written by his rivals. It was written by his own team. A political death sentence delivered in plain sight, leaving Starmer isolated, wounded, and drowning in a scandal that showed no sign of ending. But the story does not end there, because this is not only about one leader falling, this is about a party imploding, a system crumbling, and a nation demanding answers. And as the hours tick forward, the question is no longer if Keir Starmer's leadership survives, but whether Labour itself can survive the fallout of this catastrophic betrayal. As the dust from the mass resignation settled, the crisis only deepened. What began as whispers of discontent had now erupted into a political firestorm threatening to consume the entire Labour Party. Inside Westminster, chaos reigned. Emergency meetings were called, but they collapsed into shouting matches and furious walkouts. Those still loyal to Keir Starmer looked cornered, their voices drowned out by the avalanche of evidence now spilling into the public domain. Every hour brought new leaks, new documents and new revelations that made it impossible to ignore the scale of the scandal. The figure of 22 billion loomed like a shadow over every conversation, every headline, every furious demand for justice. Journalists camped outside Parliament, scrambled to keep pace with the flood of information. Reporters waved resignation letters in the air, pointing out damning lines that accused Starmer of silencing critics, of intimidating MPs who tried to uncover the truth, and of protecting insiders while millions of families struggled to pay their bills. One chilling leaked email warned, pushing this narrative will have consequences. Another revealed how dissenting MPs were cut from committees and denied speaking slots. These were not random accidents or bureaucratic errors, they were patterns of authoritarian control hidden behind the mask of unity. The fury outside Parliament grew louder by the hour. Protesters packed the streets, their chants echoing through Westminster like thunder. Placards read, "Betrayal of the people and Starmer must go." The air was electric with anger, but also with betrayal. For years, Labour had promised fairness, justice and integrity. Now it stood accused of the very corruption it had once vowed to fight. And for ordinary citizens, this was unforgivable. Families hit hardest by rising living costs now demanded to know how billions could vanish while schools struggled, hospitals strained, and working people suffered. The scandal was not abstract, it was personal. Meanwhile, Starmer's team scrambled in desperation. Statements were rushed out by Labour HQ, insisting that everything was being blown out of proportion, that the documents were misunderstood, that the contracts were legitimate, but each denial collapsed as quickly as it appeared. For every excuse, another resignation surfaced. For every dismissal, another leak emerged. The harder they tried to contain it, the faster the truth spread. Social media became a battlefield, hashtags like Labour collapse and Starmer out trending nationwide, uniting voices of outrage from every corner of Britain. Inside Labour's shattered leadership, fear spread like wildfire. Sources revealed that Starmer had locked himself in late-night meetings with what remained of his inner circle, desperately pleading for loyalty. But even within those closed doors, cracks widened. Senior figures whispered about leadership challenges, while others openly questioned whether Labour could recover at all before the next general election. The atmosphere was thick with suspicion and betrayal. Once trusted allies now looked at one another as potential defectors, waiting for the next shoe to drop. By nightfall, the rebellion had taken on a momentum of its own. It was no longer about a handful of disgruntled MPs, it was a tidal wave that had swept through the very core of the Labour Party. Shadow ministers gone, frontbenchers gone, party strategists gone, all of them carrying evidence that pointed to the same damning conclusion. £22 billion had vanished into the shadows, and Keir Starmer's leadership was at the heart of the storm. But the real danger for Labour was not just the resignations, it was the vacuum they created. Rival parties wasted no time seizing the moment. Conservative MPs appeared on late-night broadcasts declaring Labour unfit to govern, while Reform UK used the chaos as proof that the entire political establishment was rotten to the core. Nigel Farage and Richard Tice demanded snap elections, urging voters to reject both Labour and the Conservatives, framing themselves as the only alternative to a corrupt system. The collapse of Labour was no longer an internal crisis, it was becoming a national one with the potential to redraw the entire map of British politics. And yet, even as the walls closed in, Starmer tried to project strength. Standing before cameras, he dismissed the resignations as political theatre, insisting that Labour remained united, that the contracts in question were lawful, and that he would not be stepping down. But his words rang hollow. Behind him, the empty seats of his former allies told the real story. Westminster insiders whispered the same phrase again and again: he's finished. But the collapse of Starmer's leadership is only the beginning. Because if £22 billion could disappear without accountability, the nation must ask what else lies hidden in the shadows. The pressure on Keir Starmer's leadership is no longer just a political storm. It is a full-scale earthquake shaking the very foundations of the Labour Party. The resignation of 43 MPs has triggered a crisis unlike anything Britain has seen in decades. These aren't fringe backbenchers walking away quietly. These are influential figures, some of Starmer's closest allies. Individuals who once defended him in Parliament, now stepping down in disgust. Their letters of resignation, leaked to the press, paint a damning picture. Claims of betrayal, misuse of taxpayer money, and allegations that the £22 billion scandal runs far deeper than what the public has been told. Each resignation adds fuel to the fire, creating an unstoppable chain reaction. Suddenly, what began as a financial scandal has spiralled into a constitutional emergency. The question on every citizen's mind is no longer if Starmer can survive. It is how long until his government collapses entirely. The heart of the scandal is a £22 billion financial hole that no one in Labour has been able to fully explain. Sources claim it involves secret backroom deals, funneling of funds, and shocking levels of mismanagement within government contracts. Insiders allege that Starmer himself either turned a blind eye or deliberately concealed the truth from Parliament. For years, he has built his image on integrity, accountability, and a new Labour vision, free from the corruption of the past. But now that image is crumbling. Opponents have branded him the architect of betrayal, while even loyal Labour voters are left stunned, questioning whether they've been deceived all along. This isn't just political scandal, it feels like a national betrayal. Inside Westminster, the panic is visible. The opposition parties are circling like sharks, demanding immediate answers, emergency debates, and even calling for Starmer's resignation. Senior Conservatives are pushing for a vote of no confidence, while Reform UK leaders argue that Labour has lost all credibility to govern. But it isn't just rival parties. Labour's own surviving MPs are split into factions, with some still defending Starmer and others openly calling for his removal. Reports suggest secret meetings are being held late into the night, where MPs are plotting who could take over as interim leader. Some names are already being whispered: Angela Rayner, Wes Streeting, even Yvette Cooper, yet all of them are tainted by association, having stood by Starmer until now. This raises the most chilling question of all: is Labour finished as a political force? But perhaps the most explosive development is the involvement of the public across Britain. Anger is boiling over. In London, Manchester, Birmingham and Leeds, thousands have taken to the streets in protest, holding banners demanding truth and justice. Social media is ablaze, with hashtag Starmer resign trending globally. Ordinary citizens are calling this the biggest betrayal since the expenses scandal. Trust in politics, already fragile, has now been shattered. People feel cheated. Not just by one man, but by an entire system that promised change and delivered nothing but corruption. Every hour that Starmer clings to power, the outrage only grows stronger. Adding to the chaos are reports that King Charles himself has been briefed on the unfolding scandal. While the monarchy rarely intervenes in political affairs, whispers from Buckingham Palace suggest deep concern about the instability gripping the nation. If Parliament continues to spiral out of control, some constitutional experts warn the King may be forced to step in, just as monarchs have done in Britain's most turbulent eras. Such a move would send shockwaves across the world, symbolising the complete collapse of public trust in Starmer's government. As the storm rages, Starmer has attempted to defend himself with carefully worded statements, claiming the scandal is being exaggerated and promising that a full investigation will take place. But the damage is already done. His credibility is gone. His party is in ruins. And the people of Britain are demanding justice. Behind closed doors, some insiders say Starmer is isolated, surrounded only by a shrinking inner circle, refusing to step down. Others claim he's been offered deals to resign quietly in exchange for protection from deeper legal scrutiny. Whether he takes that offer or chooses to fight, the outcome is the same. Britain is now in the midst of one of the greatest political collapses in modern history. This is not just the story of a scandal, it is the story of betrayal, arrogance, and a nation pushed to the edge. What comes next may define the future of Britain for generations. Will Labour find a way to rise from the ashes, or is this the moment its legacy is forever destroyed? Only time will tell, but one thing is certain, the chaos has only just begun. As the scandal deepened, the political aftershocks began to shake every corner of Britain. The resignation of 43 Labour MPs was not just a blow to Starmer's authority. It was a message to the people, a cry of rebellion from within his own fortress. These MPs, many of them once loyal allies, stood before the cameras and openly admitted that the 22 billion scandal had shattered their trust. They could no longer defend a leader who had betrayed the very principles the Labour Party was built upon. Each resignation letter was like a dagger in Starmer's back, and the pile grew higher with every passing hour. The public, watching in disbelief, realised they were witnessing the slow-motion collapse of an entire government. But what truly stunned the nation was the revelation that the money at the heart of the scandal was not simply misplaced. It was allegedly rerouted into private accounts, offshore funds, and shadowy business dealings with foreign entities. The whispers grew louder. Was Starmer himself aware of this? Did he sign off on secret agreements that allowed billions to vanish under the noses of taxpayers? Or was he a leader too weak, too blind to stop the rot within his own ranks? Either way, the responsibility was his and the walls were closing in fast. The House of Commons turned into a battlefield. The Conservative opposition demanded immediate answers, accusing Labour of orchestrating the largest act of political theft in modern British history. Meanwhile, smaller parties smelled blood in the water, calling for Starmer to step down before the nation itself was dragged deeper into crisis. Even within Labour, remaining MPs fought like wolves, splitting into factions, some desperate to salvage the party's reputation, others willing to sacrifice Starmer to save themselves. For the first time in decades, the Labour Party wasn't just divided, it was broken. On the streets, anger turned to fury. Protests swelled outside Parliament, with crowds chanting for justice, demanding resignations, and waving banners that read "Our money, our future," and "Starmer must go." Ordinary citizens, nurses, teachers, farmers, small business owners stood shoulder to shoulder, united in rage. They were no longer patient, no longer willing to wait for political games. Some stormed local Labour offices, confronting staff who had no answers to give. For many, the scandal wasn't just numbers on paper. It was food they couldn't put on the table, bills they couldn't pay, and futures slipping further out of reach. At the same time, global leaders watched with unease. Britain, once a pillar of stability, was unravelling before their eyes. Foreign investors pulled back, fearing instability would rock the financial markets. The pound fell sharply, trade talks froze, and allies questioned whether Britain could be trusted when its own government was in flames. Every headline screamed disaster, and every passing hour added to the chaos. The Labour Party's collapse was no longer just a domestic crisis, it was an international embarrassment. But amidst this storm, one question refused to go away. Who would take control if Starmer fell? Who had the strength, the credibility, and the vision to lead Britain out of the ashes? Some whispered the King might be forced to intervene if the government completely failed. Others speculated that an emergency election would be called, one that could completely reshape the political landscape for generations. For now, one thing was clear. The betrayal of 22 billion had not only destroyed Labour's credibility, but had set Britain on a collision course with its darkest political reckoning in modern history. The truth is now out in the open, and there is no going back. With 43 MPs already gone and more expected to follow, Labour is not just facing a crisis, it is staring at total annihilation. The scandal has cracked open like a rotten egg, spilling secrets of cash transfers, foreign links, and backroom promises that were meant to remain hidden forever. Every new leak adds to the fury of the people. Every resignation feels like another nail hammered into Labour's coffin. This is no longer about Starmer's leadership. This is about survival itself. Can Labour even exist after this, or has the party reached the point of no return? Reports suggest that Starmer is now preparing to face a direct inquiry from the Supreme Court. If proven guilty of personally signing off on even a fraction of these deals, he could become the first sitting Prime Minister in modern history to be forced out of office in disgrace. Imagine it, the man who promised integrity, transparency and accountability, ending his career in chains of scandal and betrayal. The betrayal of his own MPs, the betrayal of his party, and most of all, the betrayal of the people who trusted him. Inside Westminster, the atmosphere is toxic. MPs who remain are bitterly divided, torn between defending a collapsing government and preparing to abandon ship. Whispers grow louder that the King himself may step in to dissolve Parliament and call for an emergency election. The Crown rarely moves in such a way, but Britain has not seen such chaos in generations. The nation is on edge, the streets are restless, and the people demand justice. The fury is not just political, it is personal. Families are struggling under economic strain while billions were allegedly siphoned away. Citizens feel robbed, lied to, and discarded. The sense of betrayal runs deeper than politics. It feels like treason. For many, the Labour Party is finished. Even if Starmer clings to power for a few more weeks or months, his image is shattered beyond repair. Once the people lose faith, there is no rebuilding, and yet the story is far from over. Every day, new revelations are surfacing. Who else is involved? Where did the money go? How deep does this betrayal run? One thing is certain. Britain is living through a political earthquake that will reshape its history forever. The 22 billion scandal is not just about numbers. It is about trust, broken, power abused, and a government crumbling before our very eyes. The collapse of Keir Starmer's Labour is no longer speculation. It is happening live. The question now is not whether Labour can survive this storm, but what will be left of Britain when the dust finally settles.